No. As you see there, this meeting is being recorded and transcribed, so we're good to go. It's a little bit different setup. As you notice, we don't have the microphones that you have to speak into, so but that picks it up very well. So we shouldn't have any problem on that front. We've already had one meeting in here, and I think there's been some other boards as well, and they haven't had any problems either. So I suspect that'll go well. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Land Surveyor Board. It is August 10th, and it is 9 o'clock. So let me go ahead and this chair, if we can call this meeting to order, we'll do the roll.
All right. We'll call it to order. I guess we need to read this notice. But,
yes, sir, that'd be fine.
Notice of the August 10th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors, including the date, time, and location, has been noticed to the Land Surveyors website since August 18, 2022. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since August 2nd, 2023.
All right, thank you, sir. Roll then. Mr. Kaufman? Here. Mr. Dillahay?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
All right, Chair, we do have quorum. It looks like we're ready for the agenda.
And the listed order of items and times of the agenda are subject to change as the board reserves the right to move to the next agenda items due to cancellation or deferrals.
I think we're ready then to one moment or just one note of order that I wanted to introduce. If you'll notice on the agenda, the public comment period related to items on the agenda. That'll be allowed at the end, and those present that would like to make a comment should place the name on the sign-in sheet, which I know we had a couple already do that. If you were wanting to speak or we need to address the board, then you can sign in as well, and at that point we'll go down that list and allow for comments related to the agenda. Basically similar to a rulemaking hearing, when we do that, and some of you have already lived through some of those iterations. But I think we're ready for the agenda then. If we want to, unless there's any revisions to the agenda, I think we're ready to accept a motion in a second and approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 18, 2023 meeting if there's no additions, changes, or revisions.
So we can do agenda in the minutes next, but if the agenda's okay, we can hit that one first.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I'm petty. Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. We can move on to the minutes from the May agenda, the May meeting.
Mr. Kaufman, you're
As moved.
That's right, we already got one there.
Motion on the floor.
Yeah.
For approval. Second.
Okay. We have a motion for approval and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, looks like we're ready for the Professional Society report. I know Mr. Cleveland was going to call in. Alex, is he on the line?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Cleveland, if you could go ahead and speak and see if we can capture your voice here.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Good deal.
All right. Good morning. I apologize for not being able to be there in person. I had intended to that, had some circumstances out of my control that prohibited me from making the trip. So I appreciate the opportunity to attend virtually. As far as the TAPS goes, we are full steam ahead planning for our spring 2024 conference. We've get our speakers lined up and submitted the, hopefully got everything submitted for the approval of the PDHs for the conference. Our outreach program is, we're starting to see some fruits of that. Got a lot of contacting a whole lot of high school age students and some junior high students and getting them interested in surveying. The Tennessee Workforce Program that some of our members are involved in are starting to see some reach out and get some potential employees for companies across the state. That's is starting to bear some fruit with that as well. So we're trying very hard. A lot of our members working really hard to grow the profession and get some qualified individuals into the profession. Just kind of grow our ranks. Kind of secondly is I am starting some homework, doing the groundwork for looking at possibly revisiting our licensing law. I know it was revised back in the 2014, 2015, somewhere in that time frame. Over the last few years, there's been a lot of confusion on path for licensure. Seems like I approached the TAPS board back in June about if they would be interested in me looking at this, and they said they were interested in me starting to do some research and see what it would take to just look at this and see if there was a way to simplify the licensing process. So I've emailed some stuff to Glenn. Hopefully you guys got a copy of that. If you didn't, I apologize. But we would just like to start the process of maybe a discussion between TAPS and the board, since the board would be the enforcing agency, to maybe kind of streamline and make the application process for licensure a little more straightforward, a little simpler, a little less confusing. So we're definitely interested in that conversation. We definitely welcome any input that the board may have on that. It's not our desire, or it's not my desire anyway, to lessen any requirements as far as education or anything like that. Maybe decoupling the time period between where your experience starts, after you pass a certain exam, something like that, kind of similar to the way several of us more experienced surveyors that have been licensed for many years, maybe have that experience evaluated a little bit closer to what we did when we were applying for licensure, as opposed to trying to extend out that time period 10 or 15 years. That can be very discouraging for promising candidates. So we'll definitely be looking forward to welcome any opportunity to discuss that with anybody that may be interested, and kind of go from there. So.
Hey, Jimmy, this is Jay. Quick question. If you could just if you have it off the top of your mind, in kind of a bullet point fashion, is there anything specific that you and TAPS are looking to address here, or is it a general overall view of the entire process as a whole, like from application to experience to education to examination to all that, or is it more narrowly focused? And again, just brief.
Let's see. Like I said, what I've got here is basically just me thinking and marking up the laws, the current laws. For instance, there's a lot of confusion in the associate degree path and the experience path. I've just kind of redlined where we take out, if the applicant under the associate degree, a minimum of 30 semester hours route, striking out if the applicant passes the fundamentals of land surveying examination on or before June 30th, 2016, or if the applicant does not pass the fundamentals of land surveying on or before June 30th, 2016, a record satisfactory to the board of 6 years of progressive experience after passing that exam. I think that's extremely discouraging. I'd like to remove that, as long as you've got the 4 years or whatever I have to go back and double check that. 4 years after completing the associate's degree and the required hours. I think 4 years after that associate's degree if they can pass the exam, I think they should be able to apply for licensure as a surveyor. And similar to for the experience route, removing those caveats of the date, where you have to have the experience after passing the exam, where, somebody with a 10-year degree, if they've got, the tenure or the experience route, if they got to 12 hours and can pass the exams and the, required time that's stated in the statute, I think they should be able to apply for licensure. I think that having to work to get the experience, then pass the exam, and then have an additional 4 or 6 years after that test, I think that's extremely discouraging to somebody that may be a credit to the profession. So.
Yeah. Jimmy, again, Jay, one more time here. Is this at the point right now where this is Jimmy Cleveland's review, or is this something that TAPS is formally taking on to review and then possibly provide some information to the board?
What I've done is after I get numerous phone calls throughout the year, and especially at the conference, I get several people would come up and ask me about becoming licensed and this, that, and the other. And because I've been involved with, TAPS for over 20 years. And then since I was president in 2014, I've been heavily involved in trying to attend the board meetings as much as I can, and involved in the standards of practice. So right now, this is a Jimmy Cleveland with TAPS's permission to explore this. I plan on presenting this formally to the board, to the TAPS board of directors in September. And I would suspect that at that point, we would probably be willing to, TAPS would probably endorse any potential. I would be wanting to get some input from the general membership and the board as well, to try to formulate something that everybody can be happy with, and try to move forward sooner rather than later on making some changes.
Sure.
So I mean, this is kind of the groundwork for TAPS moving forward as an association.
Just last thing here, would you or TAPS be open to the idea of allowing me to work with you, independent of the board, working with you to formulate that?
Absolutely.
I am a TAPS member.
Absolutely, I'd be welcome to anybody, any TAPS member or any licensed surveyor, having input. This isn't a Jimmy Cleveland agenda. This is a land surveying for the betterment of the profession. I have no personal. I've been licensed for 20 years, over 20 years, so I have no stake in this game other than wanting to make sure that our profession, survives many years into the future. So long after I'm retired, I'm more than willing to work with anybody that wants to help make this profession better.
Real quick, I'm just going to ask the board if y'all are comfortable with me working with TAPS, not as a board representative, just independent, and then kind of collectively working with them. Is that a conflict with any kind of? I am a TAPS member, so independently, but no, that's fine. Okay, all right. Okay, Jimmy, I'm not trying to put myself in your business, but I would like to request the opportunity to work with you and TAPS to do that.
Absolutely. My contact information is in the TAPS directory. And of course, Jay, I've known you for many years, so anybody that wants to offer input, I welcome that. The more interested parties we have in different, anybody, the more input we can have on this, the better. And I think we'll come up with something that can be satisfactory to everybody, and that can live long into the future to protect and preserve this profession.
I guess just this, Gary, I'll expand on that question. At what point does board involvement become where it has to be public hearing rather than more of a workshop?
Well, I mean, if the board decides that they want to change the statute, revise the statute the way that they're talking, then it goes through that rulemaking, or not the rulemaking process, but it goes up to legislature. So it's a process, but
Still more talking, just like Jay was asking, of participating in sitting down with the TAPS representatives to just discuss it as a TAPS member rather than as a board member.
Right.
At what point does that become, if two of us were talking down, does it all of a sudden become board involvement, or when can we be TAPS members, and when do we have to be board members?
well, I mean, you always can discuss items, as an individual with that. You have to make sure that you're not discussing as a board member. And that's just with anything in general.
It would be safe to say, as long as we're not together discussing, even with just TAPS environment completely, just you say.
Well, obviously, this is not on the agenda. It's not in front of the board right now.
Nope.
Once it becomes in front of the board, it's presented to the board, and it's on the agenda, and you're discussing it and everything, that's when you cannot discuss it with each other. And that's something that we're actually going to be talking about later.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess that's what I was looking for. So until it actually becomes an agenda item, it's just we can talk amongst
Right now,
ourselves.
yeah, and right now, Jake's just gonna be discussing with TAPS, and, he has experience in applications, and we can discuss, what kind of changes they want to make. But yeah, until it's in front of the board, that's when you don't want to discuss it.
All right. Thank you. Is there any discussion from the board members at present?
Now, Jimmy, this is Jackie.
Sir.
I'm glad to see TAP is approaching this, and, I do agree that there's, some modifications that probably need to be made.
Jimmy,
I wanted to present this to you guys today. Like I said, at the, I approached the TAPS, again, I just want to reiterate, I approached the TAPS board in June about this. It got, on the drive home from the conference, it got laid on my heart pretty heavy that we needed to look at this. And, I approached the TAPS board in June, and they, I guess, quote unquote, granted me permission to just kind of start some homework on this. And, I value, TAPS values, I value my relationship with the board, and I value TAPS relationship with the board and the transparency that we have between us. And I wanted to make sure, I didn't want the board to be surprised or blindsided by anything. I wanted to just, let you guys know that this is something I was working on and would be presenting this to the TAPS board of directors in September at the meeting in September. So I just wanted to, be transparent, let you guys know that this is something we were looking at. And, I've been around, the board long enough to know that, you guys have got rules you got to follow, and I 100% appreciate and respect that. So I understand we'll have to, work moving forward. We'll have to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's and follow every rule imaginable to make sure that we do this the right way, and make sure that we get something that preserves and protects our profession moving forward.
All right. Well, unless there's members of the board who want to discuss it further or have any other questions of Jimmy.
No, it's just, I look forward to working with, both you, Jimmy, and TAP as a group here, and I'm sure together we can come up with a solution that's best for all surveyors and future surveyors especially.
Absolutely. I appreciate the board and the board staff very much. And like I said, I really appreciate being able to attend virtually. That's really a huge benefit for us. So thank you so much.
All right.
thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and jump off the meeting. Y'all have a wonderful day and be safe traveling home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like we're ready then for the education report. It's a one-pager in front of you. These courses were recommended for approval, but just need a final board vote. And then, of course, Bill is here to answer any questions that you may have that follow up that could present themselves.
Yeah, motion for approval, so we need it, sir. All right.
Accept the motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of those listed. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Very well, then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very well. Education report passes. I guess that brings us to the director.
Okay. Just got a couple items here. One is, of course, is the budget, which is informational purposes only, and then plat requirement instructions is something that was brought up at the last meeting that we'll touch on when we get there, but a little further. So just for the budget, as you know, April and May were reported since our last meeting. We're in a non-renewal period, so we'll run a deficit through the end of the calendar year. That's pretty standard protocol. We should see quite a change come next year once we get in the renewal period. So we'll see that those sort of right itself and make it'll reconcile once we get into the next year. But right now, I looked at the what we have left as far as the last couple of months, and since our last meeting, since that was only new reporting, and I didn't see anything there that just jumped out at me. I looked at the itemized expenses, and there wasn't anything there that was alarming or outside the ordinary for those expenses. So right now we're tracking. We are in deficit, but that'll correct itself once we get in the renewal period, as stated. Unless you have any questions, there's really not much to discuss there on the budget. It's not really anything exciting.
Okay. I guess the budget requires an improvement.
Well, no, that would just be information only. Yeah.
Information.
Yes, sir. All right, so it looks like we're ready for the plat requirement instructions. If you're you're looking at number 4 highlighted, of your document. Yeah, initially, you'll see the red line was first, and then you've got a printout of a sort of a hot off the presses adjustment to that. Gary provided, he assisted us with that. The board recommended last meeting that there should be some revisions then, and so Gary took that on, and we appreciate that, Gary, for helping us sort of. And I've collated that here and what you have in front of you, but then we had so again a last minute revision, so I'll let you dive into that, but as it's read.
Okay, you know, again, this is actually a suggestion of how to change the sheet that folks go to and answers questions. And so that's the way it stayed the way it is when they ask whether the plats that are suggested should be stamped or sealed. And what we're trying to address is what we noticed, what I've noticed, and I think Jay and Jackie have also, is that we were getting plats submitted that didn't have any kind of statement about what the applicant did with the plat. That it was a plat submitted, and we would have to assume that they submitted something that they had worked on, and our joint memory was that it was always supposed to have some kind of affirmative statement onto it by the licensed surveyor who was supervising the applicant, that stated what that he did have responsible charge of it and what degree of charge that was. He described it.
Could I just interject real quick? Just for clarification, we're addressing the plats that are submitted on a PS application. That's what we're addressing. The applicant has to provide 2 plats, written descriptions for the board members to review. So those are the plats that we're addressing.
And we went back and forth a couple of times. This was the latest one. Like I said, would have meant to have it out earlier, but the storm that came through Knoxville found up my internet connections for a couple of days, and I couldn't get this over to Glenn. And this is very similar to the first one we put out, but after it went through legal, they added some stuff to it about it. Being a Tennessee licensed surveyor had to be the supervising surveyor. I don't believe that that's correct, and that it just has to be a registered land surveyor. And particularly, and we kind of covered that in the last sentence, because we do have applicants who are licensed in another state, have been licensed for many, many years, and the plats they have are going to be plats that they did and in their state. And we've always accepted them modifying that to match the Tennessee requirements, and then placing a statement on it that says that it was for demonstration purposes only, even so it had Tennessee requirements and a Tennessee certification and all the standard Tennessee notes, even though the property was in a different state. And in which case the licensed surveyor himself is really the supervising land surveyor. I guess, and that's where I was going with what we have written here. So I guess that's just up for discussion between us.
What you have here is that different from what's on there.
Yes. It is. Yes. Gary, if I may.
Yeah, let's see. I guess I can go on myself onto it. Yes, that was the first flush back that had the changes.
If I may. Sure. All right. Thanks. From what I read, this statement basically answers the question, and it also includes some additional information. There's 2 things, really 3 things that we're asking for here. On those plats that are submitted with the application. First is a clarification of do the plats have to be, that are shown, have to be stamped? Yes, obviously they do. The way it originally is written, or is currently written, it states a Tennessee surveyor has to stamp it, and that's not the case. If you're an applicant from Alabama, never performed a survey in Tennessee, obviously, you're not going to stamp it with a Tennessee stamp. You can't. So the first is clarification that yes, the example plats submitted have to be stamped and may be stamped with a out-of-state stamp. However, those plats must conform to the Tennessee standards for the rules of 08-2003, 07. So it could have an Alabama stamp with the signature of that Alabama surveyor. However, the contents of the plat have to conform to the Tennessee standards. Okay, and what we're doing is we're making sure that the applicant has read, reviewed, understand, and can display those requirements of our plat for Tennessee. That's the objective here. Okay, that's one thing that it does.
Of course, most of that was kind of already in it. The thing we were missing, or I thought we were ambiguous on, is to say that you've got to tell us, somebody has to attest that the applicant actually did the plan.
I'm getting there. Yeah, and you're right. The second thing we're looking for here is what I call a narrative, a detailed narrative of the applicant's role in this survey. And when I say that, what I'm looking for, is my personal view, what I'm looking for in this review is a paragraph, a page, whatever it takes, to detail the exact steps that this applicant played in the role of the production of this survey. That includes, from the very beginning, client contact, deed research, any field work applied, dealing with government entities if those are applied, dealing with the client, the production of the plat, and the final stamping from his supervising RLS. That's what I want to see when I'm reviewing those plats. I can give you an example of what I don't want to see, because I've seen this recently, is the applicant played a significant role in this survey, period. That literally was the narrative, and I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for, so I deferred it to a later. So that's the second thing we're looking for based on this statement here, is a detailed narrative of the applicant's role from beginning to end that they played in the production of this survey. Okay? So that's the second thing. The third thing that it says here is, and it says should, I guess that's the right word for it, and I agree with it, should clearly label on that plat for demonstration purposes only, okay? And that's to protect the RLS that have signed that survey, okay? And that's the purpose of it, right? That's the whole purpose. It's just for demonstration. So if you're, the point being that especially for the out-of-state applicants, if you stamped it with again, I use Alabama as an example, but you're conforming to the Tennessee standards, right? Not the Alabama standards. Put that on there for demonstration purposes only, for submittal of application to the board, or something to that effect. That takes the liability off of that RLS who has stamped it as to why it didn't conform to Alabama standards in that particular situation. So that's for the protection of the surveyor there. So those are the three things that I see that are coming out of this one FAQ question. Is, you know, the stamping of the document, the detailed narrative, and the for demonstration purposes to be included on it. So that's the way I view this. I think this rewording here is much better. There was some confusion and, quite honestly, some conflicting information in the original as it's posted currently. But I think this here is a significant and favorable change to be made. And again, it's just an FAQ, but I think it will help the applicant significantly, because these questions I gave quite a bit.
We were getting a lot of plats from out of state that they didn't change to meet the Tennessee standards, so it was obvious that they were missing that point, and just sending their survey. I guess the question, Jay, is, because you have said that you wanted more of a detailed description, where I just went with a very simple statement.
Yeah,
attesting to the task performed, and I did not outline the task.
Yeah, I would prefer a little rewording there in terms of, you know, a detailed description from beginning to end of the production of the plat, something to that effect, wordsmith in there, is what I would prefer to see. If you're open to it, I'm
open to it.
Jay, my one thought on this was item number 4, must the plat be stamped and sealed?
Yes.
Would it make sense to add language PS applicant in regards to the PS application? The plat must be stamped. In other words, if I don't know that this is regarding the PS application, it seems like it could be referring to any.
Well, no, this is a list of, on the web page, there's a tab that they go to where they just have commonly asked questions on it. So they're already under the surveyor application.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
so you've already.
I just pulled this out of context. This was the fourth question that we were.
Oh, I got you.
That we're having problems with is because we just so often here lately we just get plats that didn't really say whether the applicant had any problem in it, or it'd be out-of-state plats that hadn't been any adjustment made to meet the Tennessee requirements. It's happening often enough that we decided we must not have clearly answered that question. But we're trying to clarify that out.
Understood.
Just as a as sort of a side note, footnote, a lot of those tasks, you know, unlike our rules, since you're saying task, you can follow up with the applicant and detail if there's certain things missing. Now, if you think there's things that you want to articulate, that's fine, of course, if you think that's helpful. But then sometimes too, folks will take that as an exhaustive list or as a list. So that's the other thing too, or, you know, so it's up to you where you want to go with that. You could say, hey, look, this is sufficient, and then we'll just follow up if they don't have what we need, you know. Or you could say, no, I really want to get the list. It's up to you, but.
And I think that's kind of the way it works right now. You know, for example, you know, if I get a narrative that in my opinion is just too brief, too vague, I defer it and request that the applicant do. I'm just trying to save the applicant that deferral time and extra effort where they can put it in up front with the originals in the middle, hopefully to expedite the application process. That's my goal here.
Yeah, that's great. Plus, it's not like you're, you know, scuttling your discretion either way, whatever path you take at that point. You're still having to apply your discretion when reviewing that experience and using your history and experience in that regard. So yeah, that's fine. We can. So do you want to defer this, add a few more qualifiers as stated, and then just come back and revisit at the next meeting?
Well, if the chairman is comfortable with it, I'd like the opportunity to kind of add my little blurb in there. It's not much. And I don't know if this is something that has to come back in front of the board at a meeting, or if I can just make the changes.
If you've got the changes right now and everyone's satisfied with that, then we can move forward.
Okay.
I'm comfortable, you just tell us what you have in mind, and,
All right, I'll pin it up here in a little bit during a break or something. Get it to you.
okay.
Did you want to then, we could just come back then, at the end of the legal report then? Is that what we had in mind?
Probably ask for some point a 10-minute break, just to give me an opportunity to write it down, and then we'll come back in and prove it there for review and hopefully get it through. Okay. That's all right.
I'll tell you what, we'll just do that after the sunshine law, because you'll probably want to break then after the in-service.
Okay.
May have to break during.
Yeah, we'll just do it during the break. Yeah, that sounds good. We'll break then at the end of that in-service training, and then revisit right before new business, and we close out. Okay.
Sounds good.
If there's no further discussion on that, then we can move on to the, excuse me, the legal report.
We're gonna, one quick stop will be that public comment period. We try to take that, just so you'll understand the thinking in that. We try to take it for a legal report, just in case there's a legal item. We don't want to prejudice the legal report, and we want to protect the anonymity. So that's why we're going to do the public comment section just before the legal report going forward. I probably should have clarified that a little bit at the very beginning. So if it's okay with the chair, we'll take that one first, and then we'll do the legal. Has everyone that wants to speak, have they signed the ledger? Okay. All right. While he's approaching the podium, please keep your comments to within about 3 minutes and as close to the agenda as possible.
I don't have to, because you to understand the thing back all the way back to 1934. So,
Kim Lingerfeld speaking.
good morning, Tim. Keith Goldberg.
Hi Keith, how you doing?
88, when a gentleman,
Probably let them straighten out their front, so I couldn't hear you over the.
Yeah, go ahead now. I think we're good. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, sorry, sir.
in 1988, a surveyor of the name of Joseph Bible came over to property who at that time was owned by my wife's grandparents. He surveyed a right-of-way and said it was a county-maintained road across what was their property at that time. He didn't notify anybody that owned the property that he was surveying it. He never said anything about coming onto the property, but he just surveyed the property and then took it to the courthouse and registered it. About 2 years ago, well, let me back up. When my wife's grandparents died, the three their 3 children then divided the property. My wife and I bought the property from 2 of the kids, and we now own the property where this survey was done. 2 years ago, a fella from Fort Lauderdale, Florida came up, stopped and said, I bought the property across behind you here, and I've got a 50-foot right-of-way across your property, and I'm going to develop that right-of-way and open up a right-of-way into my property where I'm going to put a campground. Nobody knew anything about this survey before this time. It was he said it's a county maintained road. County has never even driven on that road that I'm aware of. The county has never maintained it. Nobody ever knew anything about it until this guy found it in his deed, where he had bought the property from the people across the creek. We've been to 2 different attorneys, and both attorneys tell us that we're looking at a minimum of about $20,000 to take this to court. And if we get that property, if we do get that back, then it's a maybe. We had the property value or appraised. Property value is about $20,000, so it's a toss up. If we go to court and lose that, we've lost basically $40,000 or more. I guess what we know is that you all really can't do anything to help us, but somewhere in the future, maybe somebody else will not be suffering the problem we're suffering now, because somebody got an individual to come on and survey a piece of property and say it's a county maintained road. That is not a county maintained road. They registered the property in the county courthouse, and nobody knew anything about it as far as the current owners. And until 2 years ago, none of us knew anything about it. We don't go down to the courthouse and search through all the
We just got some.
Now, okay, say,
All right.
test one, test two, test three.
You going to stop?
All right. Looks like we're back, or we were able to take. Mr. Baldwin was telling us about a case he had due to a right-of-way, a complaint with one of our surveyors who is now deceased. And at the time, I'll let you just kind of restate succinctly for the record, without you don't necessarily need the context, but just what it is that you're asking from the board, and then Jay will get his comments.
Okay, well, basically what we're asking is that nobody else has to go through what we're having to go through to try to hold our property. And I don't know, like I say, it's about $20,000 worth of property that he has taken in this survey. And according to one of the attorneys, they say it's a minimum of $20,000 it's going to take for us to go to court. So I just don't want anybody else to have to endure this.
Well, just, yeah, I guess, thanks, sir, for, bringing it up. Sad to say, it's not that unusual of a situation. I've been in several cases where no fault of the current owner, that the adjacent owner, a neighbor, was in a dispute with them, and there's not much to be done to stop that, certainly not on the surveyor's part, although we often end up being mediators between them and that. There have been revisions to our rules over the years that have not reevaluated, but re-emphasized how important it is for the surveyor to speak with adjacent owners when they're in the process of doing a survey, just to see if they have any information to come up with. I don't know if any of that would speak to your specific case here, and I'm straining hard not to give you what they would call legal advice, just from my experience of dealing with some of these things, but I'm sure your attorneys are telling you pretty correctly of what you have to go through.
I don't, to me, this is basically property theft, because the property owner wasn't notified. There is a lie on the survey that says this is a county maintained right of way. The county knows nothing about it. I've talked to the county executive, I've talked to the county road superintendent, I've even talked to the 911 people. None of them know anything about this road. So, anyway,
Anything to add, Jay?
Yeah, just real quick, I think think we all can say we sympathize with the situation here, with what you're having to go through. It doesn't sound fair or right or something you should have to go through. So first of all, I just wanted to put that up front. But on the surface of it, what I see here is strictly a civil case, right, between this supposed right of way, the adjoining owner, and how it came about. And you know, the purview of this board here is of the surveyors and the plats that they produce, the surveys that they produce. And right now, what I'm not seeing right here is of any fault or wrongdoing on the surveyor who performed that survey, right? In terms of if he produced a plat or not, or what procedures he went through. And then secondly, even if there were, if I understood you right, it was performed in 1988.
Yes, sir.
So the statute of limitations there is well past on any plat that he produced or work performance that he did there. So unfortunately, I'm not seeing from this side of the desk anything that we can do to help provide you with relief, other than sympathize with what you're going through, and then probably suggest, as it sounds like you've already done, you know, consult with an attorney and take it. So the best I can do for you right here from my point of view. Anybody else has something to add?
I have a brief anecdotal story. I do some house flipping, and I purchased a property, and I added a bathroom and bedroom, and I had to increase the field lines for the code. When I wanted to do that, it turned out that the septic tank was on my property, but all of the field lines were on the neighbor's property. I thought I was going to have to buy some property from him just to run those field lines. It was maybe 30 acres or so that he owned adjacent to it. Well, when I started doing research, I found that an easement was granted to do work for that very thing many, many years ago. And I mean, nobody knew about it. I don't think either property realized it, but it was done 50 years before any of the parties that owned the land really knew. And thank God we found it. So I had the authority to service that septic tank and field lines, you know, for an easement. So, easement, it's my understanding that easements run with the land, you know, not the deeds, but they run with land. And so, I mean, again, this is just, I don't want to be an attorney here, but that's been my experience, that there was a deed that no one really knew about, but there was an easement granted many, many years ago. And so these things, sometimes they happen.
Yeah, well,
So we went back to 1934 when the property was originally bought. There was no easement, no anything. It's not even considered a road.
Yeah.
It does not show up on any of the county maps or anything. But like I said, we went back, I think, my great grandmother bought the property in 1934. We can go back to 1929.
It looks like, and I appreciate the statement, but to Jay's point, there's no further jurisdiction. And I think, you know, obviously, you were intimating to that regard as you started as well. And
Yeah,
we
we
kind
just
of,
don't want this to happen to anybody
but I
else.
still appreciate you coming out and making those comments and giving the board an opportunity to sort of hear from the public, because that's what those comments are for. But at this point, there's nothing further that the board itself can do.
Yeah, we knew that. We just wanted to,
we want to try to stop somebody else from having the problems that we're having.
yeah.
It's not, you know, it's not very.
Not very pleasant.
I understand.
All right.
Thank you
all.
for hearing us out. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Looks like, Jack, what's the last name? I don't have doesn't have it printed. No, I think that's Baldwin. Okay, Mitchell Dawson?
I'll take that. Okay, I think he's going to speak in my stead, and I can say a couple of words after.
I'm Howard Dawson. Was licensed in 1979. I operated Smoky Mountain Land Surveying until 4 or 5 years ago, and I gave it to my son, Mitchell. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm here to support Jimmy Cleveland and his idea about modifying the licensure rule a little bit. And my son had always planned, that's licensed now, that owns and operates Smoky Mountain on the 10-year rule. He when it came time to go to school and stuff like that, he already had his family, and he didn't want to be broke for 4 years, and he was already working. It's all he's ever done is work with Smoky Mountain, and the 10-year rule ran out before he could sit for the exam. So we had to rally the troops and submit some verbiage for the original change in 2017. Fortunately, he went down, passed the test, first try, and there you go. There's Smoky Mountain continued. Mitchell, who works for Chastain Skillman now, has 16 years plus experience, responsible charge, everything. He's an office guy, but he's worked for us his entire life. His field crews go out in the field, comes back with nothing, and they got to send him out to unscrew it and find the corners and do and everything. So he passed the test in question a year ago, and he submitted his application to take the test, the professional surveyor's test, and he got back that he needs 5 more years after passing that test. And we want to change that. We don't. It's our fault because we didn't get in the rules and see the 6-year thing after, that word after, that we all know about. It's unfortunate, but the best I can do is be here to help Jay and TAPS and all submit some kind of verbiage to modify the situation. And I just want to be in the minutes of the meeting that I was here to support Jimmy's idea, and Mitchell was here, and Mitchell has written a letter to the board and any public members that he would like to distribute so you can read it. It just clarifies his situation, and but I've accomplished my purpose, getting in the minutes of the meeting and being present, and we're interested. So thank you very much.
And then for that letter, you can send that to my email address, and I can forward that to the board.
And I do have paper copies.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's fine. You can do that. You can do that now if you have a paper
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah, and I could say a couple of words. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak a little bit. You know, I have no qualms at all with the education requirements. I think it's pretty important that we all, you know, make sure that we're well educated, and any little bit of schooling helps in legal matters and all that. My thing is, my company and my way of living, I've got so much competition with companies out of state is my biggest issue, and we just need more surveyors. We really do. It's getting pretty dire. I'd like to help out a little bit as best I can. But that's all I have to say.
You can distribute that letter to them now. And while you're doing that, we'll call Mr. Robert Friedman. For the second distribution.
I could just real quick ask both of y'all, just hang out next time we get a break. I want to catch up with you on the whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't leave. Thank you.
Okay, it appears that concludes our public comment section, unless you have anything else that you would like to add, Jay, in response. Then I think
No, I'm fine. I just know there was other people in the audience. I thought, were they given the opportunity?
they were, and they declined, so that we're good, and we can conclude this period. I think we're ready for the legal section then. Yes.
Okay. Like 2 minute break?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll go ahead and take a break then, if that pleases the board, and then we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thanks. Pleasure. All right, we are back on. Thank you for that chance to step away a little bit. I think we all needed a break, so thank you, Jay. I think we're back to the legal report. Are we good to go from there? Are we good to launch into that?
We can go to legal report. We do have a rewording on this flat stamp seal thing.
Okay.
We need to wait later on, or we can.
No, we can actually do that right now if that's okay. Since we got you all primed and ready to go. So let's do that. No, we're going to go ahead and do the plat revisions and get that out of the way, because otherwise we'll probably forget that if we do this. All right, so if you want to introduce what your revisions were to that, to Gary's draft?
Well, he's handed it to me here, and, let's see, and I've actually shared it with the board here. We've all looked at it.
I tell you what, if you want to read it as it would look into the instructions.
Sure.
And then once you give that to me, I can make the update, and once I get the proofreading of the final copy, we'll get it published after the board approves it. So we'll leave that into the record then.
Very well. So it's, answer to question 4, which must the plat be stamped/sealed? And the answer would be yes. As stated above, the plat must meet all current applicable requirements for a plat in Tennessee, which includes being marked with a stamp seal of the supervising registered land surveyor and responsible charge of the plats who supervise it. The plats and descriptions must be accompanied by a detailed narrative of the applicant's role in the performance and production of the 2 example plats, signed and marked with the stamp seal of the supervising registered land surveyor attesting to the task you perform. Parentheses, tasks which are approvable by the board, parentheses, close. These plats shall be in compliance with Tennessee Regs 0820-030.071A. If the plats are of property in a state which you are actively licensed, you may stamp or seal the plat as the supervising registered land surveyor. In this case, because the plat shall be modified to meet all current applicable requirements for a plat in Tennessee, and it should be marked for demonstration purposes or a similar notation to ensure the security of the plat.
All right. Very well. All right. So then we'll just need a vote to accept those changes, and then I'll get those published once proofread as read into the record.
Right, motion to approve this change?
Second.
Okay. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes, we are done.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your work on that. I think we're ready then for the legal report.
Okay, number 1 is 2023-013-521. Respondent completed a boundary survey for a property in 2014 for 2.3 acres. This property was sold in 2021, and respondent then completed a new boundary survey for the land. This time, respondent stated the land was 5 acres instead of 2.3 acres. Complainant owns property adjoining the land at issue and alleges respondent has given away 2.7 acres of their land, considering this different in acreage. Respondent attempted to explain the difference in the 2 surveys he performed. Respondent states he staked the first survey based on the adjoining deed due to the vagueness of the subject deed. Respondent did not realize the adjoiner's deed, which overlapped into the subject deed, was the junior conveyance at the time of the first survey. When recognizing the subject deed was senior, respondent decided he should have staked 5 acres as called for in the subject deed and began working on revising the first survey. Complainant hired a surveyor to survey their adjoining land who used the boundary line from respondent's 2014 survey, which was incorrect at the time. Respondent has since revised the 2014 survey to show 5 acres. An expert review was conducted of both the 2014 survey and the 2021 survey. The expert, their opinion is that respondent did not engage in sufficient research when completing the first survey in 2014. However, as we know, the statute of limitations prohibits a complaint from being pursued against the original 2014 survey, despite the obvious issues with it. However, the expert also found some violations with the newer 2021 survey. And those issues are the following. The boundary incorrectly is drawn, and boundary is not a closed survey, does not close by 0.09 feet, and this violates Rule 0820-03-.06. The survey indicates a ratio of precision of the unadjusted survey is 1 to 5,000. However, respondent provided coordinate data indicating an unadjusted ratio showing he used a precision of 1 to 12,672. So he didn't show the actual unadjusted ratio that he used. He just had 1 to 5,000 on there, and that violates Rule 0820-03-.07. Respondent did not include a statement that the survey was done in compliance with the current Tennessee minimum standards of practice. I could not find that specifically in the rules or statutes, so I'm not sure if that's something that's industry required. And then the material and size of the monument found or set was not indicated on the survey, and this violates Rule 0820-03-.07. I did have more discussion with the expert over the phone to kind of understand these violations because they're so technical. And he indicated that the last violation about the monuments, with not indicating where they are or what they are, is the most serious of these. And he did say that the rest of them they're pretty technical. So based on my discussion with the expert and just the information that I have, and the fact that the respondent did correct the problem, I thought that the best recommendation would be to require this surveyor to take some continuing education to help him understand the problems that are with this survey, how to do them correctly in the future. But I'm also open to, if you feel that the civil penalties are appropriate, I think that that's something we can discuss, and I would also be okay with that. We could do both, one or the other. But I would like to hear from you because these are so technical and industry specific, and you are the experts in that.
All right. I guess I'm going to start out with the first question. I know our limit of liability repose is 4 years, but I guess I had in my mind that was more of civil protection from civil actions and not really a protection from being cited for turning out a survey that didn't meet minimum standards.
It's in our statute, and therefore I interpret it to mean a complaint that's coming before this board.
Okay, so
That's how we've always interpreted it.
okay. And I just wanted to make sure of that because I thought that maybe there was a difference between 4 years may protect them from the world, but not from us. But if that's the way it reads, that's fine. I said, personally, I disagree with, it is very serious, the mistake he made in 2014. But as far as this 2021, I don't agree with the interpretation of the rules right there. Unless a boundary is a regular mathematical figure, like a square or a rectangle, no description closes. We don't do enough decimal places on that. The purpose of that, saying that it has to close, is that before the minimum standards, there was a tendency of surveyors to not state the cause on the last line. And so they went around, like if it was a 4-side figure, they go around 3 sides and then just say thence to the point of beginning. And that's really what that rule is trying to do. Is a tenth of a foot, in my mind, is, unless it's a very small lot, is a pretty good closure. I mean, it was a 5-acre lot. That's going to be a closure in excess of 1/10,000. So I don't think that's. I don't agree with citing that. I really disagree that the thing about showing the precision, that it has to be the specific precision that you did. It's I've always, and this is an argument among surveyors, I've always taken the stance that it is, that I just have to state that it exceeds what the required closure is for that category of surveyor. And part of what brings me to that is I've actually had one survey I did of 90 acres that for whatever reason it came up as division by 0 and a perfect closure, which we all know is impossible, and that technically, and I went back through it all, it was some kind of fluke, but there's not a prayer that I was going to put that the precision as an infinity on the drawing. So that's, I don't think either of the first two are it. I do believe that the statement does require them to say that it's done in compliance with with the Tennessee minimum standards, I think that is important that he has into it. And certainly, if he did not indicate the size and type of monuments that are found, then I'd almost like more detail on that. I mean, some surveyors, they will have it in a legend and cover that, and if the expert missed that, then, but if, on the other hand, if he did not state at all what the monuments are.
That's what I understand.
Yeah, if that's the understanding, though, then that's extremely serious.
Yeah, the expert indicated that.
You know, I'm happy to cite him about items 3 and 4 as something that he's missed, and the fact that he, even if it's not in our purview, that he filed up in 2014, hopefully he's learned to look, but then those type of things can be hard to detect. But he did admit that he made a mistake, and he didn't perpetuate the mistake in the next survey, which shows some degree of integrity right there. Difficult to say how we address that to him. I mean, these are both Tennessee minimum standards of practice violations, and they're already required to take that every 2 years. So I don't know, at that point I have to, I'm open to suggestion on that, but that's my take on it. I'll throw it to you guys.
Michael?
Well, I can say, I mean, in reviewing this, I don't think he has done anything that would, suggest a civil penalty, but maybe beyond the, requirement to take some additional education courses, some type of letter, whether it, and I know there's like 3 or 4 different letter instruction.
Letter of warning.
But whatever, which one is the most appropriate to maybe run a flag up to him to be a little bit more careful.
Do you want me to?
No, that's just my
Okay.
thoughts right now. I'll
Okay.
let Jay and Kevin speak also.
Yeah, I'll go with that. And that's where I was going, Jackie, was kind of agreeing with you. My issue with the recommendation from staff, although valid, is that, look, we're already required every 2 years to take that course already. So in theory, he's taken it at worst 2 years ago and is due to take it here very soon, especially with our upcoming renewal. So the registrant should be and is already familiar with those rules. I mean, the marking, the setting and labeling of those pens is Survey 101, right? So that's, and I agree, that's the most severe violation here. So I really think we need to be a little more stern, above and beyond the recommendation of additional education, because he's required to already take that, and short of an audit now these days, we have to make the assumption that, yes, he did take it, right? So I'm gonna suggest a letter of instruction, re-emphasizing, especially item 4 about the material and size of the monuments found or set. And then also number 3 as well, that is a requirement in .07, that the survey was certifying that the survey was done in compliance with minimum standards. The other 2 above, could be argued. I'm assuming that since he labeled it as a 1 in 5,000, I'm assuming it's a category 3 survey, probably very rural, thus possibly justifying the .09-foot closure. It would take more detail, to really dig into the weeds on that, so I can't really, show the desire to enforce on that one, but definitely items 3 and 4, I would request a letter of instruction, to the registrant on that.
Do we have the authority to ask him to send us a more current plat and see that he's corrected his shortcomings?
Do you want to?
I mean, we can require that. Because once we issue a letter of instruction, it's no longer anonymous.
But, I mean, my point, my only hesitation of that would be, okay, so he corrects this one survey. The point is that he corrects all surveys hopefully from here on, and hopefully it's just an isolated event. Certainly the only one we know about, but I don't know that having him submit the survey does much other than, the letter of warning, I think will be pretty clear as to what it is we need to do.
Wouldn't necessarily have to do with us, it'd be more up to the investigator to say,
The expert.
yeah, the expert.
I mean, anonymous at this point, I mean, even with a letter, it's still gonna be anonymous, so you can have the expert look at it and make sure everything's all right, and give a report back to you.
Well, I think the
It would be
new,
in front of the board.
I think the new survey, the one that was reviewed, is the corrected. Are you wanting him to make,
Oh, the way I read this, it was a 2021 survey.
It is the 2021.
but I think that one's been corrected to 5 acres.
Yeah, but that's
It was.
that's not what we're talking about.
Okay,
That's where he made the mistake of not putting the correct certification language for identifying offense.
okay, so correct those things.
So, I mean, if we write a letter of instruction to him, part of that would be, please submit a couple of plats to the expert and be sure that you've done those 2 items.
I would agree with that. It seems like, obviously, I'm not a surveyor, so I'm a public member, but, it's almost like leaving the statement of compliance out. It's almost like it's not, maybe not the level of a stamp, I'm sure, speaking out of turn here, but it's like a pretty big thing to miss. My thought. So I definitely agree with the instruction.
Well, I mean, it shows that he's not really reading the standards, nor is he applying them or listening to the courses that he takes. Do we have a motion to that effect? Do we need a motion to that? You want to word that? You want me to try it?
I'll let you try.
Okay, so it's I move that we issue a letter of instruction, specifically pointing out items 3 and 4. That's the only ones that we feel that we need to, call his attention. And request in the next year that he submits 2 plats to the, expert, showing that he is complying with the minimum standards. That's the motion.
I'll second.
I was waiting to see if she was correcting my grammar.
Well, I would open for discussion. Yes, I would think that they should be submitted to the board for our expert to review, not that they were submitted directly to the expert.
Amend the motion to however the proper procedure for that is. I guess our intent is that we don't think the board actually needs to see it, that we can take the word of the expert review. Is that?
So any 2 plats in the next year, just kind of be audited by an expert.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're ready for a vote then. Did you already, yeah.
Jackie seconded. Okay. All right, that ends the discussion. All in favor of that, say aye.
Number 2 is 2023-019-221. Complainant is a real estate broker and a landowner, and respondent is a land surveyor in training. Respondent assisted in completing a survey in November 2017 on a parcel of land adjacent to complainant's residential parcel of land. Complainant states there is a section of land between her land and the adjacent parcel, which is not found on any survey. Complainant also alleges respondent was supposed to make a correction to the survey and has failed to do so. They further allege that a corner pin is missing. Respondent denies that the property corner was set in the wrong place, and notes that the complainant has no proof to support this. Respondent has since met the complainant and their husband at the property and replaced the missing corner. Respondent further checked multiple control points and property corners that day and states everything was correct. And I will note that because this complaint is related to a survey conducted in 2017, our statute of limitations prevents us from disciplining the respondent for any violations that may or may not have been found. So I also don't find any violations based on the information I was given by the complainant. So in consideration of that and the statute of limitations, my recommendation is dismissal.
Question. Why is the complaint against the land surveyor training and not the registered surveyor?
That's just who they filed the complaint against. So, and that's who responded. I mean, we can change it in the system, but,
Well, no, I mean,
Oh, I agree.
That's the way it's been filed, I don't know if is there any action that this board can take?
Well, I mean, they do say that since he has an employer, we can assume that the employer was the land surveyor, but it's just.
Right, I mean, we could open another complaint against the land surveyor that is the employer, but I didn't see the need for that, but I can if we need to.
I'm with Jackie, it was more of a clarification. That was.
Yeah, no, I mean, they specifically.
The SIT doing a survey,
What is that as well?
the discussion, I don't feel any, I tend to agree with, your assessment that this is a dismiss. Motion,
Motion to dismiss.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor for dismissal?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 3 is 2023-018-401. Complainant alleges respondent is offering land surveying services on Facebook without a license. Specifically, the respondent is advertising defined property pins and property corners for a flat rate of $79 up to 1 acre. Respondent charges $39 for each additional acre. Respondent offers their services in East Tennessee. Respondent notes their service, quote, provides property owners an economical rough start when trying to determine property pin location. If legal issues needed to be addressed, you may wish to consult with an engineering professional and or attorney, end quote. The Facebook page has very minimal content and only lists a phone number and an email for the business. An investigation was conducted. The investigation revealed that respondent may go by a few different names. The investigator also did more research on the internet and couldn't find any other advertisements or information for the respondent or the services that they're offering. The investigator did visit the residential address that we found through an internal research through a database that we pay for. They visited that residence on June 15th of this year and left their card at the door because the person did not come to the door. Respondent has not contacted the investigator, nor have they responded to our mailing attempt. So at this point, I recommend issuing a letter of warning, a detailed letter of warning, instructing respondents that they must cease offering land surveying services without a proper license, detail what land surveying services are under our statute, what the civil penalties are for unlicensed activity. I also think we should suggest that, well, it depends on if the board decides that finding pins is land surveying. If you do not, then we recommend that this respondent state they are not a land surveyor on their advertisement. So I think that it should be discussed whether or not pins finding is land surveying.
It seems to be the crux of this, and we have to define, does this constitute surveying without a license?
So I have all the definitions in our statutes. If you want me to go over them, I know you know them, but I'm happy to do that if that will be helpful.
To me, as soon as he says that I will find your property pins, and says that they're property pins, and again, as property corners, I will find your property corners, to me, that's clearly land surveying.
Yeah, the issue I have here is the client is taking the assumption that what this person discovers is their property corner. That's where the line is crossed, so to speak. He's not fooling anybody here, what he's doing, and what's implied by his services. He can disclaimer all he wants on his website, he can do all that stuff. I get it. But at the end of the day, the client is acknowledging that the pin that he discovered and acknowledging that that is the property corner. They're taking his word for what's taken, even though he disclaimed it. I get it. But it's surveying. It is surveying. He's trying to disguise it. He's trying to mask it. I get what he's trying to do here, but it's not working. It is surveying. He is in violation of the law. That's my viewpoint. And whatever we can do to hit him with it, let's hit him with it.
I agree. 100%.
it's disrespectful to every surveyor here and every client that
the
he
public's
takes.
not being protected in this case, in my opinion, when he's off.
And Jay makes an excellent point. It's beyond just the fact that he's saying he's locating property corners, even if he disclaims it. No doubt in my mind, and client's walking away with the idea that that's where his property is.
You know, personally, I'm a little torn on it, but I'm leaning towards you guys, and my rationale for that is, I think, you know, even as a non-contractor, you can build your own home, you're allowed to do that, but I can't build homes for other people, not having a contractor's license. And it's somewhat, I could find my pins on my property with a metal detector if I so deem so, but I can't offer that service not being a, so I would agree with you guys.
Yeah, it's offering the service.
It's offering the service, and so therefore, you start to,
And
you
remember,
cross the line. I think.
we're here to protect the public.
Yeah, and I
The public, in this case, is his clients that are taking it on the faith of what the service he's providing, I mean, pins, is a property point, right? Even if, like I said, maybe he just claims it all he wants. That's where the disservice to the protection of the public is, right there. And that's paramount, our goal, is to protect that public. That's why we're here. I think he's discrediting
I agree with that.
the public and all the surveyors that are out there right now, so. Whatever we can do, letter of warning, whatever we can hit them with, yeah.
I think at this point, a letter of warning is appropriate because we don't have an official business. We don't even have an internet advertisement. We have something on Facebook. You know, we give them a chance to take it down. We also don't have a consumer complaint, thank God. And then if this comes up in the future, again, we've warned them, we've given them, you know, the things you can't do, that a license is required, and we could take it further. I mean, we do have the ability to, you know, issue civil penalties for unlicensed activity. We would have to get the person served.
Most of what we're doing here is laying the groundwork for, if one of his clients were to take his word that that's the corners and build a house too close to the building setback and get cited, then this would be the groundwork where we told him that if that happens, he is at fault. I would agree with that.
So, I mean, it is what it is, the letter of warning.
Oh, and the cease and desist, of course.
Because we're telling him to stop it.
Yeah.
But that may or may not stop him, but, and if it doesn't, and he comes back and forth, then more, strict discipline will come.
In the form of a motion, we'll say, let's issue a letter of warning that includes the definition of why this is constituted as land survey and a definitive cease and desist.
Yes. And I do think in this case, based on what I know, we will have, investigator personally take that letter out there and leave it, as well as certified mail.
Kudos to the investigator here. Good job. On him or her. Good job.
So that's the motion. I made the motion.
All right, second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that takes us to number 4, 2023-023-431. Complainant is in a dispute over land that he believes was incorrectly surveyed and taken away from him. Complainant's only details to support the allegations in the complaint are that he saw respondent outside on the property at issue and, quote, saw that he was not going to get the survey right and feels he will, quote, have to do the surveyor's job for him. Complainant has been fighting what he believes to be an incorrect survey result that he feels has taken away land from him, and that property is now on the market to be sold again. Complainant believes there's a mistake in the county records and property assessor's database in relation to the coordinates of the piece of property at issue and wants that error corrected. Respondent states that they were hired to survey a property in December of 2020, and when they were out there, the complainant came outside to see what they were doing. Respondent introduced himself and listened to the backstory of complainant's property and surrounding land. In respondent's response, they detailed the intense research they had done before they went back out to the property in May of 2021 to continue their work. At that time, respondent explained to complainant what he had found from his extensive research, which included the fact that a description in an adjoining deed was wrong and had been for a long time. Complainant made it known that they disagreed with respondent. Respondent completed their survey, informed their clients of what they had found. and that complainant did disagree with the boundary line. Respondent discussed some options for how to possibly resolve the situation, and this led to the respondent's client offering to give complainant the portion of the property in question, just give it to them if they would take care of the paperwork getting prepared, and complainant declined. So here the bottom line is that complainant simply disagrees with respondent survey, won't take what's being offered, and it's a boundary dispute. Of course, we have no jurisdiction to influence a county record or property assessor's office. The complainant has an attorney, they can pursue this civilly, but I don't find any violations of our statutes or rules here, and I recommend dismissal.
I think, candidly, the thing that bothers me on this is that I'd really like to send a letter of something to the respondent here saying that we think you did a good job and did everything you're supposed to do.
We can do that.
Because I think I read through this and it looks like he's really done what he needs to do. He did the survey, he listened to the adjoiner's complaints, he showed what he found, showed what the other guy was going and conducting himself in from what this reads, a pretty good way. Go ahead.
My thought is, I agree with what you're saying. However, I would put a little caution towards that, only in the sense that we don't know all the details of what's going on here, right? We don't know. And if the board were to issue a letter, something to the effect of what you're saying, which I agree, somebody did a fine job, and another issue gets discovered later on, right? Well, he's going to come up here and say, well, hey, the board just says I did everything right. It kind of puts the board in a rough place. I get where you're going, and hey, slap on the back to the guy for communication skills and all that, but I would be a little leery of the board issuing a letter of anything that resembles, hey, you did a great job type thing.
Maybe it's sufficient if that got into the minutes.
That's why, and I wanted to include those, even though it wasn't necessarily important. I wanted to make that known to the board, that we have somebody out there that's doing such a good job.
Doing it the way it's supposed to be done.
Well, and if I may interject, you actually just intimated your will-based, because that's been recorded, and we can just draw them to that record. So, and that's already memorialized, so they'll be aware of that and appreciate the sentiment. And I understand, and I appreciate the sentiment. When seems like when you're always filing letters of instruction and warning and discipline, it's nice to say, hey, give the attaboys what they're due too, so to balance that out. So
usually the best they get is a dismissal, no action.
Right.
So, and I appreciate you doing what I was about to say.
I figured it was coming.
I was expecting that.
All right.
Okay, then,
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we would accept the recommendation and dismiss this complaint, as it is a civil matter, not a rules matter.
I'll second that.
any discussion? Very well, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that takes us to our final complaint, which is number 52023030421. Complainant is a licensed land surveyor and states they were contacted by a potential client to provide a survey. This potential client provided complainant with a survey prepared by respondent. The survey covered a 2-acre new tracts of land. Complainant alleges that a planning commission did not allow the survey to be recorded because it did not meet their standards for subdivisions at this time. Complainant alleges the potential client who owns the land is now looking to pay them to begin the process to get land recorded correctly after paying respondent to do the same thing. Complainant alleges the landowner hasn't been able to get in contact with respondent about fixing the issue. Respondent first notes that this survey at issue is still in process, and their client, the landowner, has not been charged, nor have they paid as alleged. Respondent denies the allegations, except they do confirm that the draft of the survey did not originally meet the requirements of the planning commission. Respondent has been communicating with the landowner and has been working with them to gather the information required to satisfy the subdivision plat requirements. Respondent would not expect payment for this until the subdivision is approved. After respondent received notice of this complaint, they spoke with the landowner. who admitted that they had been confused and thought respondent was just too busy to complete the survey. Respondent asked the landowner why they did not express their concerns and only sent a single text before reaching out to complainant. The landowner told complainant that they did not have any issues with respondent's work and just needed the survey completed. So the landowner was not the one who issued this or that filed this complaint. I just want to, reiterate that. So I find no evidence of violations and recommend dismissal.
Don't really have any comment on that.
Nowhere to go?
Yeah, there's nowhere to go with that one. So,
I move, we accept the recommendation. Dismiss.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor of dismissal? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that concludes the legal report.
All right, I think we're ready for your, new service training, I guess, suppose, for lack of a better term, the sunshine law, so, just do it if you wanna take all
Okay.
that.
All right, so, every year we have to kind of give an update, on sunshine laws, which is the Open Records Act and the Public Meetings Act. Just as a disclaimer, this is for informational purposes only. Vote on it or anything, just sit back and enjoy. The Open Records Act is codified in TCA 10-7-503. What's included in the Open Records Act for the board, is when there's a public records, request, the items that are in the public records request would be like documents, media, electronic data, any other materials, but it would not actually include, say, the iPad or whatever it's on. So anything that's on your iPad would be under the act, but the iPad itself is not. The Public Meetings Act is codified in 8-44-101. And so, in this presentation, we're going to find out what the act is and what constitutes a meeting, what is required for a meeting, and what if the board violates the act. The definition of public meeting is the Public Meetings Act definition at 8-44-101A. The General Assembly hereby declares it to be the policy of this state that the formation of public policy and decisions is public business and shall not be conducted in secret. All meetings of any governing body are declared to be public meetings, open to the public at all times, except as provided by the Constitution of Tennessee. The act applies to every meeting of the board. So what is a meeting? A meeting is defined as the convening of a governing body, of a public body, for which a quorum is required in order to make a decision or to deliberate toward a decision on any matter. This includes committees and subcommittees. So what is not a meeting is, even though it's not a meeting, like lunch breaks, restroom breaks, breaks in between the sessions, and even adjournments, it still doesn't matter. Any time that you're on a break, whatever, you still should not discuss any matter that's before the board. So like I said earlier, regular meetings and special meetings all count on or all subject to the act, and the exception is the executive session. So an executive session occurs when one or more members meet with the board's attorney, and the board is under a lawsuit or has been threatened with suit, and the members ask their attorney questions related to such. Electronic attendance. What if one or more members cannot attend a meeting in person? This is codified as if one of those members present in person, if those members present in person make a quorum, then the meeting may proceed as normal with other members participating by phone or electronic communication. However, per the department policy, any member attending by electronic means of communication does not count towards a quorum. It has to be a physical, in-person quorum, to be a meeting. The public has the right to attend and observe the meetings, but not the right to participate. However, the department permits public comment so long as the comment is not disruptive to the flow of the meeting. And as we learned this year, we now have to include a public comment section in all the agendas. And they can only discuss what is on the agenda. There's a three-pronged test to provide adequate public notice. The content of the notice must reasonably describe the purpose of the meeting or the proposed action taken. The notice must be posted at a time sufficiently in advance of the actual meeting in order to give citizens both the opportunity to become aware of and to attend the meeting. And the notice must be posted in a location where a member of the community could become aware of such notice. So there was a Attorney General opinion, posting a notice online to meet the adequate public notice requirements is contingent on facts and circumstances behind the posting, and whether the location would be one where members of the community could become aware of the notice. So, in essence, what we do is we put it on our website. That's why all the notices are pasted on the Land Surveyor's website. So, in a nutshell, the Public Meetings Act is designed to make sure all board business is conducted in a way accessible to the public, and it applies to you both as an individual member and collectively as a board. All gatherings of more than one member or meetings are covered by the Act, including regular, special, and emergency meetings, and including committee and subcommittee meetings. The only exception is the executive session, which is your opportunity to ask your board attorney questions in anticipation of litigation. But you may not deliberate or decide. And for every meeting, we must give adequate public notice and content, location, and time. So if you violate the law, then any of the act or any decision that you make is void. And this is where the North Carolina Board of General Examiners versus the FTC comes in. So in 2015, the United States Supreme Court ruled in that case that board members may not be subject to immunity for their actions on the board. North Carolina Board made a decision preventing non-dentists from providing teeth whitening services. The Supreme Court held that the board's actions were not entitled to certain Federal Trade Commission antitrust immunity. The court determined that a non-sovereign actor, which is the board, controlled by active market participants, which is board members who participate in the regulated profession, enjoy state action immunity from federal antitrust liability regarding anti-competitive conduct only if, one, the challenge restraint posed by a non-sovereign actor is one clearly articulated and affirmatively expressed in state policy, and two, that the policy is actively supervised by the state. Tennessee responded to the court's ruling by enacting TCA 4-4-126 in order to protect the board members, providing review of board actions that may constitute potentially unreasonable restraint of trade or anti-competitive action. Further, the department has designated our deputy commissioner with responsibility to actively review board actions and assist boards when needed. If you ever have any questions about this, always email me or Glenn. We can explain it further. So, other than rulemaking, the supervising official shall evaluate whether the action may constitute a potentially unreasonable restraint of trade that requires further review. If it is determined that an action requires further review, we will provide notice to the board within 10 business days that the action is subject to further review. Review the full evidentiary record regarding the action. If necessary, supplement the evidentiary record or direct the regulatory board or other involved persons or entities to supplement the record. We conduct a review of the substance of the action de novo and on its merits. and in writing, either one, approve the action, two, remand the action, or veto the action. So that is the update of the Open Meetings Act, Public Records Act. You all have my contact information and Glenn's contact information. Always remember, if you email, do not include one of the other board members on the email. Always just go directly to me or Glenn or both of us. That's it. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Sounds like it's pretty much all the same as it has been before. Was there anything in there that was different or new or changed from years past that we've been?
No. It is.
Thank you.
All right, good riveting stuff. Then I think we're ready for our new business. Then we'll have the, unless there's new business, then we'll have the PDHs, which would be 2 hours right now.
And we covered everyone as far as folks wanting to address.
Yes, sir. We went down the we asked everyone to sign in and who was left and those declined across the board. So
There's something I can talk about it very informally, but if you want me to address, I can.
no, we're past that section at this point.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But I do want to talk about something informally about the new rule about the international fees.
So more has to bring it down. Yeah, it has to bring it. We can put it, you can send me an email, I'll give you, and then we can bring it for the agenda and see if we can have jurisdiction or how to proceed.
It's the new law, the signed in, they're all for me,
Okay.
like 3 of them are.
All right.
I could bring up one item.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna steal your podium. I do want to address the idea again, just for discussion right now. The concept of what we call decoupling the PS exam. Okay. Currently, as it exists, we've already decoupled the FS exam. And what I mean by that is, in order to obtain the licensure as an LSIT, you must take the FS exam. In past days, it used to be you had to gain your experience, your education, and then take the exam. It was all that procedure. What we've done since then, as it is now, you can take that FS exam at any time. Right? It's just part of the three-legged stool. You don't have to get it in certain order. You just got to get all 3. Once you get all 3, you can make an application, which works out really well. The idea is to basically encourage the applicants to get that licensure as quick as possible. As it exists right now, we've got, you obtain your LSIP licensure, and then you must gain, either additional experience before you qualify to take the PS exam, make application, take the PS exam. What I want to discuss here, and with the board's permission, is to perhaps look into a little bit deeper about perhaps decoupling that PS exam as well. And some of the options that are in there are, the extreme level would be you can take the FS exam at any time, as it exists right now. You can take the PS exam at any time right now, and then go through the qualifying steps of experience, et cetera. Once you gain that, make the application, and you're awarded that certification or registration. That's the extreme option. The other option could be, okay, you have to gain that LSIT certification first, and then, as it exists right now, get that additional experience and take the test. The option would be gain that LSIT, and then in that window of experience that you're required, based on the path you're taking, you could take that PS at any time during that window. Again, the idea would be to speed up the process for the applicant. I mean, if the applicant's ready to take that PS exam now, additional experience, although certainly beneficial, but why are we holding them back? What is it that we're requiring in that 6 years of experience just to sit and take the PS exam? If that applicant feels that he's qualified to take it at day 1, he could pass the test. Again, just passing the exam does not gain you licensure, but it's part of that 3-legged stool towards getting the licensure. So the idea would be, take the exam, get the experience in there. You probably have the education already in there, unless you're on the 10-year rule, get that extra education, and then you gain licensure. So it's kind of like a shell game, so to speak. And right now, the way our shell game is designated is that PS exam is that last shell, and it's locked there. What I'm saying is, why? Why are we doing that? Why are we requiring them to gain that experience before taking that exam, when the applicant or potential applicant could be certainly qualified on their own behalf and say, look, I'm ready to take that test. I can take it right now. Why am I required to wait these extra years of experience to do that? Now, we've already addressed that with the FS. We addressed that a couple of years ago, and I think it's worked quite well. I think you guys would probably agree with me. I'm not speaking for you. I think it's great that they can take that FS exam at any time. At any time. and then gain the, finish up with their education experience and then gain that certification. So why are we doing that with the PS as well? And this is coming across for discussion on a much broader term, not just me in this room with discussion with the Tennessee board. This is with other states as well. They're all looking at this. And the idea is, to benefit the applicant and prospective registrant as much as we can to encourage them licensure. We need surveyors qualified. We're not lessening any of the qualifications. We're not doing that at all. That's another discussion. So that's what I'm kind of proposing to the board here is, with your permission, I'd like to put this on the agenda for the next meeting, allow some time for some research in here to see, okay, if we were to do that, how does that affect X, Y, and Z on other parts of the rules and laws that we've got? What are the implications there? What are the benefits? What are the detriments to the board, and especially to that potential registrant? How are we benefiting them best? And does this actually hurt them in any case? And that expands onto even the educational entities that are involved, the universities that provide the quality education that we're looking for. Certainly applies towards the businesses that are employing these potential RLSs. How does it affect them? And then ultimately, how does it affect the future surveyors that we're trying to get registered and licensed? So my point is, I'd like to bring it up for discussion, see if there's any thoughts on your part about it, and then if you're okay with it, I'd like to kind of chase this a little bit, put an item on the agenda for the next meeting, allow me to report what I found on it, benefits, detriments, and then if we choose to go further with it, we can proceed that way. Obviously, it's a long path. This is not something that could happen or should happen quickly, but I think it's something that certainly is a movement across the country with all states. They're certainly, at the very least, looking at it. Some of them have already implemented it, but I think it's time for us to catch up and at least get on board with them. Discuss it. If it's not the right move, we'll table it and go with what we got. But if it's something that will benefit surveyors and ultimately the public to get those surveyors that are just as qualified, not taking away any qualifications, I think it's something we need to look into.
One thing that's helpful to administratively, and you're well versed in it by now, Jay, is just that red line. So that way we know exactly, if you could put together, based on your research, a red line that we can look at, then we know exactly what you're saying and what you're talking about, and the rest of us would have sort of a reference point there to help drive that conversation. A work product,
Right.
And then if other surveyors or members on the board have something along those lines as well, what we've done before is, for that work product, just like we did with the plat, we would, I will collate that, and then together have sort of a working product for you to. Yeah. So just send that to me, and then I'll reach out to you as regards to that, and we'll put that together for next meeting.
All right, second item, and I'll make this a little bit quicker. Again, the topic of eliminating the TS exam has kind of come up again, and a little personal experience on this one. Of course, I've always been a proponent of doing this, eliminating the TS. I've spoken in front of the task group about it, how I'm a proponent about it. I'm even more adamant about it now, having just gone through the licensure process for Kentucky. Right now, that is the only state that I'm aware of, there might be one other, that does not have a state-specific exam. It's the only one.
That's correct.
I think that's right, yeah. I was asked to, and ultimately did obtain the Kentucky license, and it went through the basic process of obtaining an NCEES record, had to submit that to the Kentucky board, which I think we need to look into as well, so it's special. Make application, and then there was basically some logistical paperwork to fill out that, a lot of it was I attest to having read the Kentucky standards and, will hereby do everything I need to do. Pay the applicable fees that are expected and turn it around quick and easy. I mean, it was nuts. I didn't have to take another exam, prepare for another exam. I was provided with all the materials that go towards, like their standards of care for surveys in Kentucky. And I understand and had to attest to that I understand that I am solely responsible as a Kentucky surveyor for the rules, laws, and regulations in terms of surveying in Kentucky. That's the professional way of doing this. It's much like the way engineers and architects handle it. I think it's the right way. I just don't see why we're still doing the TS exam here in Tennessee. I get it because we've done it that way always. I did it. Everyone here that's registered did it. I get it. I get that. But again, I think this is a better way. I think this is a better way. I really do. So I'll table it right there, but just for discussion further, I just don't want people to think that I've dropped it. I'm still chasing that. I'll open that up to you.
need to do some discussion on either one of those right now, because just want to get on to the agenda.
I'll let y'all have it. My goal is to get the revisions, decoupling the PS on the agenda for further discussion the next meeting.
There's no, unless you're, I would never cut off the board if they want to further discuss, but administratively, there's not a need for that, because at the next agenda, we'll have that work product and the decoupling, as I collate those responses from you, and I'll reach out to you as it pertains to that. But then to TS exam, that's a statute change.
Yes.
You know, anything like that,
A lot of legwork.
it is. Well, and you can, departmental bills, is one option, but those things have to be adopted by legislators, you know, and so it really just needs a sponsor and co-sponsor up there, and that's through TAPS, you know, and lobbying.
It can be, or the individual. I just went through it on the international foot that you mentioned. I was the one that got the sponsors for that one.
The public is what I was saying, whether that be TAPS.
A public member, not a board member.
Yeah, and so, and then of course, whatever they come out with on the other side, we'll enforce it. You know, that's where we'll have to do that, but, and of course, that they're always, we'll look to the subject matter experts on the board to make sure it is enforceable, you know, but ultimately, we won't have the board can always articulate, what they would like to see, and it sounds like you've done some of that here, and that's great, that's fine. But as individuals, you know, not collectively, we haven't voted on that as a board, but ultimately, it'll take somebody from the legislation to do that. So the piece that we can discuss right now would be that decoupling, and see if, I haven't looked at it, but I think it's a statute. And so that, you know, even so, but again, a red line might be instructive, you know, so I'd like that work product, and the board says, yeah, this is what we'd like to see. That helps. That's a voice, you know, that can be heard, and so and that you're able to do something. But for us to necessarily say that as a result of that, it's going to move, or what will happen with that, I mean, we all know that's a process, but we can at least do our part. So yeah, we'll do that next meeting.
I think we have been discussing the possibility of doing away with the state specific for the exams. I think that's out there, and it's in the wind and going to talk about anyway. I never considered the decoupling out of the PS. It'd be interesting to see what you really have in mind on that, what's the purpose of it. Just a quick thought. One thing that hits me is there could almost be an advantage of the number of surveyors that I've talked to over the years who have sent somebody to the board and telling me, I know full well that he's not qualified, and I was expecting the test to eliminate him, is that would save the board from going through and reviewing his application if he just went and failed the test on his own and came back. But another positive would be, or a negative of that is how do we ensure that once somebody signs up and takes the test, he doesn't immediately start throwing a fit, well, I passed the test, all the rest of the stuff is incidental. You know, it's not, yeah, I know, it's not incidental, but I can see that argument coming at us, of how you word that, so. But, yeah, I would be interested in seeing.
Jay, is your proposal, decoupling with PS, does that address Mr. Dawson's?
No, it does not.
Okay, it seems like.
They're similar, and they will overlap, and it does not directly,
Okay.
they're not resolved this issue.
Gotcha.
That's also a statute change. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So unless I think we're ready for the PDHs now.
Right, so, looks like we've been here for 2 hours and some change. So,
Make a motion for 2 PDHs for the 2-hour service. Second.
Okay, discussion? Well, all in favor of 2 hours, say aye.
Aye.
I guess I have, before we adjourn, just one thing, since I've known Jay for a long time, just through TAPS and boards, but Jackie and I rub shoulders every once in a while, and this is likely to be your last time rubbing shoulders, unless you're going to go for a board membership another time. And just want to say, I'm really going to miss having you around.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Appreciate your service.
Very much, very much.
Been an honor.
still gonna call you from time to time. With that, need a motion to adjourn or just declare it adjourned?
Adjourn, since we've already approved the agenda, so yeah, you could adjourn if you're okay.
Here, we stand adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Gary, can I have